we're out here. This is the field where the magic happens.
Benning Bites with Damon Benning. Benning Bites with Damon Benning.
Another episode of Benning Bites, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy Sports. Listen, if you like competition, daily competition, which you know I love, and you love sports, Underdog Fantasy Sports is for you. Just make sure you visit the website at Underdog Fantasy Sports, and when you enter the promo code Benning. That's BENNING. Daily sports fantasy competition. Love it. Right in my wheelhouse. It could be in yours too. Appreciate you being a part of Benning Bites. A heck of a show today. I mean, it's not like there wasn't anything to talk about, right? On ESPN 590, KFOR in Lincoln at 9, and ESPN Tri-Cities. We love being statewide. We kind of like doing what we do. You can catch us old school ways, those ways. We love radio. We love AM radio. Or you can get us on Google or Twitch or Facebook or X. I'm probably missing one. Spotify. Yeah, I think that should about run the gamut. But just on the heels of all the moving and shaking that's going on with Nebraska, and just being a part of the Husker Radio Network yesterday morning, and kind of getting a feel, engaging the sentiment, and most importantly, probably there's lots of favorites. Obviously, seeing high school guys sign, and you folks know how I feel about young people and them giving a chance to be one step closer to reaching all their goals and dreams. It's fantastic, especially some right in my own backyard. But perhaps my favorite thing yesterday was talking to Coach Hogerson, on and off air. And I know it's like, what? It wasn't a Coach Rhule thing? Yes, I love talking to Coach Rhule. But Coach Hogerson was different because he said a couple of things that I think are interesting. And this is coming from somebody that I talk about this a lot on air with Ravi, and just doing life in general, and the ability for asking for help and kind of making yourself vulnerable. And Coach Hogerson has kind of these characteristics, at least so far of what we've seen. He kind of tells it like it is, and he's a straight shooter, and we love the breath of fresh air because, he doesn't mince words. And he said a couple of things yesterday that I think we should really rally around if you're looking for some perspective. Number one, I asked him about characteristics that he was looking for based on what I felt like Coach Rhule exudes. I talked about Coach Rhule as other-centered. He's super self-aware, and he's super competitive. And Coach Hogerson said, one of the things I think that is fascinating is Coach Rhule has this ability to thrive and function at a high level in chaos, where he comes across as unflappable, and he can just dial in. And I thought to myself, and he followed it up with, I want to learn from that. I want to take some notes. I think he's a good person, and he's a good person for me to be around. And that kind of it struck me as odd, primarily because that's not exactly the depth that I would have expected. And it's not just because of Coach Hogerson's delivery or kind of the splashy press conferences. It's just hard for men to do. It's just not, we don't naturally talk about things like that we're drawn to. So I appreciated his candor and his ability to be direct in that moment, because it's not only healthy, it's helpful, and it kind of gives you a snapshot into what he thinks this program is capable of. Number two, and along the same lines, he was kind of telling the story of how he was on his way back to Fort Worth. He referenced that Nebraska had called him earlier in the year in January, and he said it wasn't fair to Nebraska, it wasn't fair to Coach Rhule, it wasn't fair to myself. So right away I'm thinking, oh, okay, self-aware. Self-aware. Could have easily just had a job to take a job, knew he was going to be in a decent spot, got a new quarterback coming in, all those things, right? But no, took some time to process. And he didn't reference himself first. He didn't say, well, it's not good for me. He said, I didn't think it was fair to Nebraska. I didn't think it was fair to my family. I didn't think it was fair to Coach Rhule. And I was tired. I needed a break. I'd just gotten fired. And again, doubling down on the self-awareness thing. But the kicker was he said, and when he called me back a second time to ask for help, that did something to me. That meant a lot. And again, I'm like, wow. Hey, here we are, another grown male adult just laying it on the line to another grown male adult about the perspective of how hard it is and how appreciative we should be when other people can ask for help. And I immediately, I remember the feeling when he gave me that answer. I'm like, yep, I don't care what else happens. We're gonna be okay, at least in the short term, because just think about how hard that is to do and admit out loud, both as the receiver of the information and the guy that's actually giving the information. Because that, in essence, is a snapshot of what I think this program is designed to be about when you talk about culture. Grooming young people to function at a high level when it's not always rainbows and butterflies, and how to be authentic and honest with one another to arrive at a desired outcome. I think that's really what it's about. And just in that short little interaction between alphas in highly stressful situations, you don't see it a ton. And I'm thinking to myself, yep. I'll go back to something that my kiddo said a couple, 3 weeks ago amid chaos. He said, we're going to be okay regardless of what happens because we have good leadership. And I thought to myself, are you being myopic? Is it just a little much? But the more I'm watching these guys operate under duress, losing friends in the job, losing players you care about in the job, like a lot of us just aren't built for that. And to see the open level of communication between two guys, two grown-ups like that in a time of crisis was somewhat refreshing. And as you guys know that listen to me, being able to thrive in chaos and having competitive stamina are two things that I care about and two things that I saw in full display yesterday. It's another episode of Benning Bites.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.